What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Crush Live Collins. I am your host here, Bart Hansen. It is Monday, August 21st, 2023, and we do this show every single Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time as of now. If you want to get on the show, you must pre-submit your hand. You can click on the little link in the description. It will get you instructions on how to pre-submit your hand. We read them all. If you are a Crush Live Poker website subscriber, of course, you will always have priority. I will read them all personally. And if you are not a CLP website subscriber, you should consider subscribing and really improve your game. But we still read them. Michael G will actually pass along the best ones to me. So we read them absolutely all. So let's get into it here. We've got 5 calls here today. Action-packed Monday the 21st. I will be going to Chasers to play the 510 mix game, 510 half no limit, half PLO tomorrow. I just got back from a fishing trip in New Hampshire, went to a clam bake last week, bunch of fun, got some pickleball stuff loaded up towards the end of the week, and so I'm all booked up. And then I'm going to LA in a couple weeks here too. Go back to the Hustler. Let's go to our first caller here, and this one is gonna be, let's see here, Dan. Hello, Dan. You are up first, sir. Hello.
Hey Bart, I was up having some clam chowder all week up in where you were this weekend.
Oh, whereabouts?
I was up in Saratoga for horse racing, do some betting up there, and I ended up, winning some money Friday, Saturday, and driving down to Rivers, Schenectady, where I haven't played in probably 5 years or so. But that whole area is great.
Where did you have clam chowder?
So my buddies and I do a trip every year this week, and we make it at home. It's the best clam chowder you'll ever have. It's unbelievable. We make it on Wednesday. We have a bunch of fresh clams flown in to the house. It's unbelievable, and we end up eating it all week and have a nice little steak grill on Friday night. So it's a fun week, and anytime I can add some poker to it. I live down in DC, so MGM National Harbor is my main casino.
Okay.
But was up at River Schenectady, so I did not know anyone that I was playing with.
Okay, so you got a hand here from Schenectady, or is this from MGM?
Yeah, this is from Schenectady.
Okay.
Saturday night. And what's funny is I didn't realize, and I don't think this would have changed people's action, but maybe it would have, that it's the only casino I've heard of that at 1:50 a.m. every night, they actually close down for the night.
Well, they do that at, I don't know if they do it, well, they do that in New Hampshire, too.
Okay.
I mean, it's odd to have like a full-fledged casino do that, because I think they're a full-fledged casino.
Yep.
But, I mean, you don't have to stay open. And then there are different rules about different places around the country, where, like I said, the charity rooms have to close. I think it's at 4 a.m. now in New Hampshire. But okay, so River Schenectady, and what's the size of the game?
So it's a 2-5 game, and the game had been boring for a while, but then some players transferred over. We had a full table, so we were doing a mandatory straddle at 10. So it was a 2-5-10 game, basically, $1,000 cap.
Okay, so 1,000 cap, buy-in, 2-5-10. Okay.
And my effective stack was 1,300 for this hand.
So 1,300 effective. Okay.
And for this particular hand, I'm in the straddle.
Okay.
And the two players who were in the hand, just from the way that they were talking to each other, I could kind of tell that they were both regs. One of them had been at the table since I got there, and he seemed pretty solid. That's the under the gun +1. And then the hijack had just transferred over the table with probably, 2,000 chips or so, but they all seemed to kind of know each other.
Okay.
And so under the gun +1 raises to 40.
Okay.
Hijack calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the straddle with ace of clubs, 10 of clubs, and I make the call.
So upfront straddle, like to the left of the big blind, right?
Correct.
Okay. So +1 to 40, which is 4x. I don't know what the open size was. Like normally could be 35, could have been 40. Nothing too crazy about that. There's a call, and you've got ace 10 of clubs in the straddle. Yeah, this one's kind of close. I kind of like ace 10 suited plus as a squeeze here with the dead call in between more often than not. And where I would flat here would be just sort of heads up against a early position raiser. Whenever you get this dead overlay in the middle, you are incentivized here to 3-bet. And obviously it is kind of the one spot where it's a little bit polar, not quite linear coming out of the last blind, because you can call with a lot of in-between hands because you don't have to worry about getting squeezed yourself. But still, I would, and then, sometimes as bluffs once in a great while, I'll throw in some like direct suited connectors, but mostly sort of suited broadways, like nines, tens plus, a little bit of an overlay. So I would say maybe 75% of the time here, I might three bet. Obviously, you got to watch the stack sizes here too. There are times when the effective stacks become short where this might become a call. Otherwise, it might be a three. In normal cases, it would be a three bet because you can't three bet and not commit yourself, and you don't really want to do that. But okay, so you make the call.
Yeah, I mean, real quick in my logical head, with ace king, ace queen suited, those are definitely three bets for me. Ace jack is sort of on the line, and then ace 10. I might sometimes three bet with it. I guess probably more often than not, I'm just calling. My illogical reason was I just lost a pretty big pot where I three bet with queens. Some guy called me with 6-7 suited and ended up, winning a big pot against me, flopping trips. So that was probably playing into my reasoning, although it probably shouldn't have.
Well, you want that action though, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that guy was not in this hand.
But. All right, so let's go to the flop.
Okay, so the flop is 9 of clubs, 8 of clubs, 6 of clubs.
So you flop the nut flush here.
Correct.
And I was getting into this debate. Well, it's not really a debate. I mean, I don't really care that much. It's just there are people, and I don't know. Maybe it just was irritating to me at first in the beginning. Now I know for the most part, these people have no lives, or they're just trolling. Where somebody will say, maybe we put in the thumbnail, hero flops the nut flush. Someone's like, there's a straight flush out there. Straight flush. And I always say, the nut flush and straight flush is different. I consider ace 10 of clubs here the nut flush. If someone has 5-7 of clubs, they have a straight flush. So that's just a little poker vernacular, I would say, that it's just a different class of hand. So you have the nut flush here with ace 10 of clubs. So obviously that's a pretty good hand.
Yeah, that's correct. And talking about the hand with one of my buddies, actually thought that I may have a possible lead here just because I've such a range advantage where there's a lot of straights and flushes that might really crush that flop out of the straddle. I didn't know your thoughts on that.
If you were going to lead, you mean?
Yeah. Do you think that there's, a percentage of the time here that you might lead because of that range advantage?
Well, you probably have more flushes completing. It's more of an equity / advantage where you're going to have more two pair than the +1. But most of the time when I would lead with big hands, as our buddy Nate Schmidt in the live chat, one of our coaches says the value of fold equity is low, meaning you don't want folds, so you don't want to check raise and get somebody to like bet fold the 9 or something like that. So I could see leading here, absolutely. The other thing too about fast playing the nut flush is that no one ever believes you if you fast play it. So you should get endless amounts of action from second best hands. Whereas if you wake up with a check raise on the turn, someone goes into like sort of somewhat of a check call shell. So absolutely, I might lead here some of the time. I don't think it's a bad play at all. I think that the boards where people would be like, oh my God, that's so unbalanced, would be like king 7 deuce, like all clubs. But here you could probably have a number of different leads. So I wouldn't mind it at all. Now, with that being said, it's just a single raise pot. You guys are 100 big blinds effective. You might need to do stuff to build the pot up a little bit, although it still is 125. So I'd probably go for a check raise more often, like in a limped pot where you really got to build the pot up here. Here, you probably can get most of the money in through leading anyway. So, I mean, I could go either way, but I would have no problem with leading here.
Okay, yeah. So I did check with the intention of raising.
Okay.
And so I check, and under the gun +1 bets a third pot. He bet 40.
So he same bets the flop.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And hijack calls.
Okay.
And I raised to 160.
All right, so 4x, which is going to be, a little bit under the pot size. I mean, I think you might even be able to get away with going smaller here, like 125 or something like that, because once you get one call, you can easily get the money in. But okay. I mean, I like that more than calling, that's for sure. And the other thing, too, that you got to understand, and I don't know if you were ever thinking about slow playing against +1, but when he bets and the hijack then calls, I think it's a real bad play to just call when hijack calls the guy's bet, because now you're going to have both of these guys wary of you. slow playing something big when you overcall, and it might get checked through a lot on the turn. So yes, definitely raise now.
Yeah. So yeah, and I figured that any overpair that maybe under the gun +1 would have with a club is going to call a raise, and I didn't know what hijack had, but he can have any number of hands there. So yeah, and they both called.
Oh wow, which is pretty interesting, right? Because you've got the you got the ace of clubs, right? So it's like, what are they calling with?
Right. Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
mean,
It
and
was.
and it's also, I mean, you wouldn't really expect a whole lot of like offsuit sevens here, like 8-7 off. I mean, if you throw those out and you have the ace of clubs, it's like, did somebody flop a flush? Did someone flop a set here? Obviously, the +1 can have an overpair, right, with a club in it. He probably shouldn't continue with like a red overpair with the guy calling behind. So it is somewhat of a it's somewhat of a tight range. So both call. And now you guys have put in what, 480? It's probably just a hair over 600, maybe
Yeah,
605.
605 is what
Yeah.
I had.
And you've got, 800 left. So it's going to be pretty easy to get the money in here.
Yeah, so now I mean, in my head, I'm just praying the board doesn't pair so I can just, keep barreling. And of course, the turn's a 6 of diamonds.
Uh, I don't know if I'm really all that concerned about that though, Dan. I mean, you only have a pot size bet left. And yeah, like sure, someone could have like nines or eights. I mean, again, you don't really have to protect against anything, but what are you going to do if you check? Like what are you doing going into a check? Like if you, I don't know exactly what you did, but if you check and someone bets 300, you're gonna call, and then the pot's like 1200 and you've got 500 left. But if you check jam, now all of a sudden you've played it even stronger than what it was before. So I think once the pot sort of gets to this SPR, which is just over one, I don't know. It probably doesn't matter that much. I mean, the only times where this would matter would be if you're deeper or maybe if you're against more people. The other thing, too, is a six is not as bad as a nine or an eight either, because I could see some people having like 9-8, right? But the six shouldn't really be that relevant because.
Well, I've got 1100 right left.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you had. I thought I thought you started with 1,000. Excuse me.
No,
So
effective
1,100.
stack 1300.
I mean, I guess it changes things a little bit, but it's still pretty close. I just don't know. I mean, I guess if you want to check and then if a guy bets and you check call and then check at the end, it's pretty close with two SPRs. Like I said, I was thinking more like you had just over one SPR, but I'm still probably not really all that concerned against two people.
You're just assuming that kind of it's an overpair situation or something like, Broadway cards with one club,
Well, I'm
basically.
certainly, if you were heads up against the initial raiser, the +1 guy, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be concerned, right? What this
Right.
guy is lingering in with behind is interesting. But yeah, against +1 heads up, I'm just continuing to bet. We can debate here two ways with two SPRs, whether you want to check and see what's going on. So I could maybe see that.
Yeah. So I did end up checking and they both checked behind.
So yeah, so it gets checked through. So check. Now, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that someone doesn't not have to have a boat here. I mean, I guess some people could be like slow playing. Like you could have +1 in here with like nines, and he's like, oh, I'm just gonna let the guy try to catch a club from behind. So, but I would feel pretty good about this.
Yeah. So the river's it's a blank. It's the deuce of spades.
Okay. So the final board is 9-8-6 all clubs. Hero has ace-10 of clubs out of the straddle. Check raises the flop, gets both calls. Turns a 6. It gets checked through. Pot 605. River is a deuce, and Hero has about like 1,100 left. So now it's just kind of like, well, what are we trying to get called here by? You're trying to really hope that the +1 guy has an overpair, and he thinks that you have like not club draw. So I think probably I'd bet 400 here.
Yeah. So yeah, this is where I think I made probably in my mind maybe the biggest mistake of the hand. I only bet 240.
Yeah, I don't know what that like. What does 240 get called by that 400 doesn't get called by here?
Yeah, it's almost like a block bet almost.
Yeah. So hero bets 240. Okay.
So under the gun +1 goes into the tank. And so now I'm thinking in my mind, okay, what am I going to do if this guy shoves? I mean, theoretically, if I'm betting that small, I should have some bet folds in my range.
I mean, if he shoves, I think this would have been a pretty. I think that's gonna, man, in out of Schenectady. I mean, that's one of these ones where I very, very well might overfold the river here. I mean, I know it's gonna be tough the way that this hand went down, but you just almost have to give him a full house here when you have ace ten of clubs because like, what else is he doing it with the guy behind? The bluffing frequency just becomes so small when the guy behind him could also be sandbagging something. Like he's gonna have nine. You just don't see it like flop like top two like 9-8 and makes like a PLO play, right? It's just like you're not. If he were to shove here, I can almost guarantee you that you're not going to be good as often as what the pot odds are laying you, or what you need to be good. But
Right. Yeah. I mean, out in Vegas and at MGM National Harbor, I'll see some sophisticated players do that exact bluff where they're blocking both of the top sets with, 9-8,
yeah,
but seems fairly unlikely in this scenario. So, yeah, so he tanks and he eventually calls and the hijack immediately folds. And under the gun plus one reveals king, queen of clubs.
wow.
Yeah.
So he's got king, queen of clubs for the second nut flush.
And the hijack said, but he didn't show, but he said he had the naked five of clubs. So
The
he was like
naked five
going
of
to a
clubs?
one-liner where I would have, beaten his brains in with the higher straight flush.
Guy does not sound like a very good player. With the naked five of clubs. Well, the naked five of clubs where if the 7 comes in, there's a one-liner to a 10. He can't even feel
Right.
good about his hand.
Right.
Drawing to the ass end of a gut shot straight flush. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you that you just got unlucky that you didn't obviously hit a blank, right? You're unlucky there. But I got to tell you, this is why fast playing the nut flush is such a great play in my book. If I was your +1 opponent, you very well might have gotten all my money because I would have very well might have put in a third bet here on the flop to your check raise. The only thing that would have stopped me is because I have the king and the queen. Like if I had king 10 of clubs, you know what I'm saying? Something like that, king jack of clubs, I would have been putting money in very, you called me unbalanced, but you would very well might have gotten my money on the flop because I would never believe that you had the ace-high flush, which is why I preach playing it that way, right? And I don't want to have happen what sort of happened where things kind of shut down and then I don't get the value from like a smaller flush or a set or something like that, like a fourth club runs off. So I think you're a little bit unlucky in that case. I assume any blank, you're going to get it in. So it's just a little bit unfortunate.
In that spot when I raise him on the flop, a lot of good players might think I'm doing that with the naked ace of clubs, and like you said, raise me again with that hand. So
yeah, no, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
In Schenectady, New York. Schenectady, New York is also where one of my guys, Nash, who's in the live chat, right? Is he in there? Did I see him? Ryan Nash. He is from Schenectady as well. And he is the guy that called in several years ago that we have as the hand on our trailer on our YouTube. You ever see Sean Deeb kicking around there? All right, let's move to our next caller here, and we've got, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, but is it Tian? What's up? You're next.
Yeah.
Are you a first-time caller?
No, I called twice before already.
Oh, okay. Well, take it easy, buddy. I mean, I've done this show for 6 years, but the reason why I asked that is because I thought that you had called before.
No, yeah.
Okay. And you play out of Boston Harbor Encore, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. So this hand
we
is...
haven't seen you at Encore in a while.
No, because, and again, like I'm playing tomorrow I like to go to I like the daytime game at Chasers, right? The 5-10 mix. So that's where I'm going tomorrow. Like I can get there at 10 a.m. and I'll be home at 6:30. I mean, I live right in between the two places, but you can't really get, I mean, does 5-10 even go off during the day at Chasers? I mean, excuse me, at Encore, really?
During the day, that's a good question. I mean,
yeah, so
sometimes
if I want to play a game during the day, that's why you haven't seen me there.
Yeah, it fills up usually
Yeah.
around dinner time, so maybe before that.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so this one's you. Is this 2-5 or 5-10? I don't remember
This,
exactly.
this is 2-5. I mean, I'm sorry, 5-10, 5-10,
5-10,
20.
okay. So there's a
Strap
25, what is it, 500 to 2K buy-in at
2K,
Encore?
2K cap. Yeah, yeah,
All right, Boston,
yeah.
2K. Okay.
Yeah, the Strato was on the whole time. The Strato has been on very frequently lately, so
Yeah.
and I think it's so the hand is between me and a pretty strong player in the room.
Okay.
And we I think we roughly had about 3,500, maybe a little bit more.
And you said this hand is straddled or not?
It's straddled, yeah.
All right, so right around 3,500 effective straddle pot. Okay.
So he's in the low jack and he opens to 50. So 50 has been the standard open on a straddle
Mm-hmm.
setup.
Okay.
And then I go ahead and 3-bet to 175 in the cutoff with ace of spades and ace of hearts.
So ace of spades, ace of hearts,
Yeah.
3-bet to 175. Okay. I mean, not. It's fine. I mean, obviously, it's over 3x, right? I'm just trying to think like 5, 10, 20. You're playing just under just under 200. So you might want to bring this one up just a little bit to get more money in there. But okay, so you go to 175.
Yeah, I'm actually playing around with the sizing a little bit. Like I feel like in a 200 big game, in a 100 big game, I'll try to size it up to get so that I can get all the money in. But then a 200 big game, it's a little bit tougher to get the money in. So I don't know.
I don't know. Sometimes I think about that in a different way where it's like I'm trying to get as much money in as possible, and you could get away with going 175 at 100 BBs because you could get the money all in, right? With just 3 bets left.
But then what about all your light 3-bets? I mean, when you decide,
I mean, I would say usually I do tend to make my 3 bets the sizing somewhat consistent, but you don't always have to. I mean, there can be different reasons why. I mean, there's situations where you just think a guy's never going to fold to a 3-bet, so you size up, right, for value. There are other situations where the stack sizes will dictate that it becomes very polar, where you're either going to get it all in or going to fold, and that might dictate sizing it up to like that threshold amount too. So it kind of all depends.
So you're saying I could go a little bit bigger too?
I would tend to go a little bit bigger, but it's just a subtle thing. So you go to 175, okay. Mm-hmm.
So he calls. He's been so that night I was sitting to his left, to his left. So he was folding a bunch to my 3-bets, and he finally defends this one time. So I figure he's got to have a strong hand. And flop comes queen 6-4. So queen of clubs, 6 of spades, and 4 of clubs.
All right, so front door flush draw. You don't. So it's queen of clubs, 6 of spades, 4 of clubs. You've got ace of spades, ace of hearts. Okay.
Right.
Pot's about 380, 385, something like that. Oh, actually, yeah, I think so.
Do you feel like a c-bet is mandatory here in position?
Absolutely.
Why size up, right? Because he could have some sets. He could have.
Well, yeah. I mean, he can have sets on any board, right? If you're talking about going down where he's always opening and defending with any pair, then he can always have sets on any board, right? Yeah. So the best boards for you are the ones where there's just no possibility of 2-pair, and situations where hands don't have that much equity against you. Like if someone had a Broadway flush draw, it would just be a dry flush draw here, right? You know what I'm saying? Like as opposed to like, queen jack 8 or something like that when you have aces. So usually like the 3 disconnected low card boards can go pretty large because your opponent's forced to defend. In single raise pots, when you get two Broadway boards that are connected on dry heavy boards, you tend to go large. It wouldn't surprise me if this is kind of a 1/3 range bet with almost every single hand here, I would say.
Yeah, I wondered about that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the most common sizing that you're going to get in an optimal setting. Does that mean that you can't go 2/3 with some hands? No, you could have more than fucking one sizing, right? This could be like a 75, 80%, like 1/3, but then you've 25% of hands. It's 2/3 or close to pot, and maybe aces is in there. I don't know if that's specific combo, but I'm just saying. Like, it's not always just one sizing, right?
I guess you can target all the queen X, and then you can just go 2/3 because
It's really, but even if you were to go 2/3 here, I mean, it's really, I mean, is he just gonna fold out sevens through jacks,
right. Yeah, yeah,
especially with a club in it,
yeah.
So, so I
So I
assume
went
check, right?
125. I went 120. Yeah, he checks. Check call 125.
So you bet 125. So you did take the very small sizing here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that kind of, I don't know if that played a role later on. Like, did it induce something? When he called though, he had this hesitation that I hadn't seen before. So I wasn't sure if he was trying to make a move then, or he was, maybe he was thinking about raising. I wasn't sure.
So 125 call. So now the pot is what, like 630? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
hmm
A turn is when it got interesting. It's Queen of Diamond.
Okay. Now I will say here, I don't know. Actually, I do remember now what happened from your email, but I was just gonna say, I meant to say this before you even told us what the turn was that if somehow like you check back the turn on some card that you don't like, whether it's front door clubs or, for example, like a queen here or something like that. I mean, obviously you have aces, but I keep trying to drill this into CLP subscribers' head that if you use small flop c-bet sizing, your opponent's gonna end up with a much, much wider just volume of overall hands at the river, and you have to call down lighter at the end. So I don't know what's going to happen. Well, I do know what's going to happen. If the guy checked you, I assume you probably would have checked back, right?
I was playing against him. I was going to check back
Right,
because I
right,
wanted to control a little bit
right.
more.
And then,
Things.
like I said, like you're probably going to have to call down, on a brick if that were to happen. But I know that didn't happen, right? This guy leads or something.
So I didn't get to check back.
Yeah.
He leads 300, which is
Okay.
pretty large, right? Like
So low jack leads 300, which is kind of interesting because you don't see this that much.
No.
We did so Nate helped me with a podcast a while back. I'll definitely make reference to it, content reference, and we'll link to it. We have a new area actually of the CLP website where we can put a lot of promo material in there. It's called Free. We literally just added it a few days ago, and it's specifically for this purpose where I can take bits and pieces of content that I'm referencing and stick it there. And people that don't have subs can can listen to what I'm talking about. And it's just a little bit odd to have a check call leading range in a 3-bet pot. I want to say we covered it, Nate. You can confirm this in the live chat though a while back, maybe a couple of months ago, because usually you'll see these types of plays like in single raise pots. It's hard to balance from your opponent's perspective. I'm not necessarily saying it's wrong. And obviously in a 3-bet pot, it would be much more likely that he should be leading on a top pair card as opposed to a middle pair card, which is where you usually see the leads come out of like single raise pots versus the big blind heads up, right? So, but I mean, obviously you're in a call, right?
Yeah, I didn't like it very much, but I had to call. I also talked to a couple of people that study a lot more than I do. They looked into the kind of like the chart of solver. There's like no leading.
Right, from this guy. That doesn't surprise me. Right, in an optimal sense, right?
Basically, the conclusion was that he was trying to exploit, but why? Like what was he? So I actually had a feeling that he didn't want to miss
you checking back the turn.
Right, he didn't, because if I were him, I probably would be worried.
Right,
about
because you're going to check it back a lot. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Right.
I would want to get 3 streets of value.
Right.
From a guy that's likely to check back on this card.
Yeah.
And then it's also interesting because if you're talking about like a donk by a bad player, it's usually called button clicking, right? But from this guy, it's far from that, and I just felt like it was really tricky.
Now just throw something out. I'm not 100% sure on this in a 3-bet pot, but I do remember going over this topic, and sometimes you see, and again, it might have been single raise pot. There were some interesting outputs that we saw where the out of position gets to do some like protection leads. And again, it might be in single raise pots when the top pair pairs, like with a hand like 9s or 10s or something like that. Just throwing it out at you off the top of my head. I'm not saying that that's going to be present in a 3-bet pot. But okay, so you call, the pot's now 1230.
Right.
Yep.
River comes 6 of hearts.
Okay, well, so now the board's double paired, and it's one less hand really that you have to worry about, right? Like if he flopped 6s and played it like you were saying, he didn't want to lose the
I also
value on the
don't
turn.
yeah, I also don't see a lot of sets played this way
It has a
though.
check call lead. I agree with you. I tend to
Usually
agree with you.
usually a queen or
Well, I
I
mean, the only thing I would say about that is maybe he was planning, if he did have a set of sixes or fours, he could have been planning to check raise you turn, and then he, kind of changes it up because you're going to check through so much. You know what I
right.
mean? So, by the way, just on the flip side of this too, and again, more present in single raise pots, I saw some very, very good high level tournament players attempt to, like a guy like Stephen Chidwick would do this. He would check back almost his entire range on the turn, including trips here. Maybe he's got slivers of boat bets. Uh, Leaning towards the worst queens, like if he had queen 10, queen jack, he would check it back just because it's expected to get checked back so much in position.
Right.
Again, usually these are setups in tournaments where it's like single raise, somebody in the field versus big blind. So it's not an insane situation for you to like check back a hand like queen 10, queen jack. Obviously that didn't happen. I just want to throw it out there. So river's a 6, queen 6-4, queen 6. Okay, and what happens now?
He leads 1,000.
1,000.
Yeah, almost pot.
And by the way, too, if you did have a weak queen here, I assume you would just call the lead, right?
Right, right.
Queen 10, queen jack.
Well, I mean, you
If you 3-bet it pre, and the same
yeah,
thing went
I
down.
guess why? Because you're saying if I jam here, I'm only getting called by pocket sixes.
I just think that like with a queen 10, queen jack to kind of protect yourself, that you would do a lot of calling of the lead
You mean on the turn?
on the turn, right?
Oh yes, 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 yes.
The reason why I
Yes.
bring that up is because we're going to
Yeah.
probably go down like an MDF road here at the end. So you might have some weak queens that are played this way.
Right.
It's, if you're trying to look down at the, your class of hand, how does my hand
Also,
fit in?
he's actually I don't know. He's repping a hand that's stronger than queen 10, right? I feel like in that case could be he could have been bolted up already. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where it's like, I mean, it's almost kind of like a gutsy, we keep saying playing Fifth Street Chicken and stuff. Like, how much do you think this guy's exploiting you? Can you
Right.
find some bluffs here? Would he ever turn fours full into a bluff that was ever played this way here? And usually not. If you sometimes might call with some ace highs on the turn that are still have forceful, being like a sliver of showdown value, I think we can probably take out the whole protection type bet with like 9s, 10s. This pot's getting
Right.
big for that,
Yeah.
especially when he bets
I
1,000.
mean, I
So
think he would check back the river
yeah,
unless he decided that his 9s and 10s are not good enough already. And when I called the turn, he just wanted to turn it into a bluff.
yeah. I mean, he's betting close to pot. You probably need to defend down with what 60-ish. You're not quite getting 1.5 to what? Yeah, you're not quite getting. Well, I mean, you'd probably have to defend down with somewhere around 660-ish, maybe a little bit less, something like that, when he bets almost of the hands that you arrive here with.
I
So
guess I mean you could argue this combination of aces are the ones that if you want to call with aces, this is the only combination you want to call with because you block ace queen suited.
if you
But
mean if he didn't defend with ace queen off, you mean to a
no,
3-bet?
no, if I'm calling on the river, then this with aces, but not all aces, then this is the only combo of aces that I should be calling because
Well, if he didn't defend with if he always defends with ace queen off, then it's not relevant. But if he's
right.
only calling with ace queen suited, then yeah, I mean, you look at if you block the ones where he can't have ace queen suited. I mean, just go down the line and figure out like if he's a reasonable player, what hands is he defending with here to your 3-bet? Let's say that he's defending with let's just say he's defending with all ace queens, right? So you've got 4 combos of ace queens, right? King queen suited, it's going to go down the line, right? 2 of king queen suited, 2 of
Yeah.
queen jack. So that's 6. So that's like 10 combos of the queen X. Maybe one combo of 6-6 if it's played that way. I mean, again, it's like how often is he playing these hands? And then you can look at it like that. Okay, he's got 10 value combos. How much is he actually playing like this? Maybe let's liberally give him 80% of the time he plays like this. So it's like 8 combos. And then now you're getting 2.2 to 1. So can you find like 3 bluffs here, right? That's the ratio. So you can go down the MDF road, or you can look at it like a combos wise where I'm getting 2.2 to 1. If he's got 8 thick value, can I find like 3 to 4 bluffs here, right?
Right.
And the
And
thing that I would say here that might, as I think through this one, because it's really close, I think you make a point where you might grasp here on the fact that you do block the ace queen suited, and I'll go back when it's close. You used such small sizing on the flop that this will sometimes induce a play that's a bluff here, as opposed to if you went 2/3 or full pot and he called and he check call lead, that would be lessened. So I think I would call here for those reasons, but it's close.
I tanked and I folded. I convinced myself that he wanted to get 3 streets out of me. And I thought that if he had a natural bluff, he would. And then there's a likelihood that I would check back the turn, and he would want me to check back the turn. So, I I mean, in hindsight, I think I should have called.
Did you get a reveal?
No, he would never tell anyone. I did tell him it was a painful fold, and he asked me if I had jacks. So I don't know what that
I
means.
mean, I think it's an exploitable fold on your part. I think you probably are supposed to call here most of the time. I actually thought that you were going to say, like, oh, my combo of aces is good because I don't have the ace of clubs. And then I say sometimes people look at that not necessarily in the right play if you're trying to look at this optimally, because the ace of clubs isn't supposed to be bluffed, right? So he could have the ace of clubs, yeah, but if that one combo isn't supposed to be bluffed. But anyways, it's an interesting one. Appreciate the call. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move along here. 2 nice calls. Let's go to Patrick S. Hello, Patrick. You're up next.
Hey, Bart, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear, sir. Where are you calling out of?
I live in New Orleans.
Oh, is this a can from New Orleans too?
Yeah, Harrah's.
I played there a bunch. I used to travel to New Orleans. I've been there like 5 or 6 times. I don't know if they've changed the setup. Their 2-5 game used to be uncapped. I loved it. I've had some massive sessions there back in the day.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy there. I usually play the 1-3, but it's match the stack. So if you show up late in the day, it's pretty rare that there's not going to be at least a stack of over 1,000.
Everything's
Usually
matches. So 1-3 plus is all match the stack, pretty much.
I'm not 100% sure about 2-5, but 1-3 is match the stack. Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure that 2-5 is at least uncapped or match the stack. Is that what this game is? 1-3 match?
1-3. That's right.
And how deep are you?
We are 2,000 effective.
Nice.
So it's a fake 1-3 game.
Yep. Does that mean that people are raising larger, usually pre a little bit?
The average open with no limps is around 15 normally. So,
okay. So like a 5x.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we are 9-handed in this hand,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm on the button. And
Okay.
the action's going to start with the main villain, who's under the gun +2.
Okay.
He raises to 15.
Okay.
And then we get a call from the cutoff, who is probably the best player in the room and is going to usually do a lot of 3-betting.
Okay.
And then I have 10-9 of diamonds on the button.
Okay.
And I decide to 3-bet to 75.
Okay.
And both players call.
So both call. Okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You're just making it 5x, so it's like 4x plus the dead money. Okay, so both call, and now we're off to like maybe 225 and change.
Yeah, I made it a little bigger than normal just because we're so deep.
Yeah, so I think it's
for
fine.
what it's worth. The cutoff player is also like 2K effective, so all 3 of us.
Yep.
So 225, and then the flop comes 10 of hearts, 7 of hearts, 3 of diamonds.
So you flop top pair.
Yeah.
Top pair, a little bit of a backdoor. I'm definitely, if it gets checked to, I'm definitely betting and probably using, somewhat of smaller sizing for protection / value. That's just if that happens to you here.
Right. So what ends up happening is under the gun actually leads for 150.
Okay.
Under gun +2. And the cutoff folds.
Okay. So the good player's out.
I'll give you a little bit of history on this guy. So I had only been there for maybe an hour, and I had never played with this guy before. He's an older male, doesn't really play like an OMC. He opens a decent number of hands and is reasonably aggressive. And I had seen him lead into another player earlier with top pair, and ended up overvaluing top pair in that hand. And then I had played one hand with him earlier where I actually flopped top 2 against him and got, I think, 2 streets of value after the run out was a little bit shady.
My only counter to that, my gut reaction here is, yeah, sometimes you'll see people lead top pair or they'll lead like jacks or something, but it's a three-way pot, which that tends to sort of lessen that. Because you had said before, like, yeah, he led into you, but you were probably heads up in that one. So
Right.
yeah, it's interesting. You said for 150.
150.
I mean, I think the play here is mostly call. You know.
Yeah, so I do call. I'm already kind of not in love with the situation, but I think with the potential to make a bigger hand and the backdoors that I have, I can't really fold.
Right.
So I call.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the turn.
So the turn is the 2 of clubs, a pretty big brick,
Okay.
and UTG +2 bets 200.
Okay. So +2 bets 200. Obviously, I would love to have over pairs here more than 10-9 because you could be accidentally getting value town once in a while by 10, right? I don't think I would
Right.
if you call again though, I wouldn't really expect a bet here though again from a 10. You know what I mean? So like if you
Mhm.
call and call, a lot of times a 10 isn't going to bet again, you know?
Right.
So I assume
Right.
you call.
Yeah. Again, I'm still not loving it.
Mm-hmm.
um, I also realize I don't have a heart in my hand, so that's kind of helpful if he does have a flush draw. So I do call.
Yep. Okay. 925 to the river.
Yep. And then the river is the 6 of clubs.
So the final board is 10, 7, 3, deuce, 6. Front door hearts have busted out. Hero has 10, 9 of diamonds, 3-bet. A flat in between, 3-bet the button with 10, 9 of diamonds, and then gets this lead here. Okay.
Right. So UTG +2 bets 300. And I'm really not loving the situation. Um, I feel like he's going to have a lot of 10s that beat me here, especially when I guess his bet size is getting larger, but proportional to the pot, it's less than a third pot. Um, and so I feel like if I call here, I'm going to be losing a lot to hands like King 10, Queen 10, Jack 10.
Yeah, I mean that's debatable. I mean it's such a small bet. I know what you're saying. Also 8-9 comes in too. I'm not saying that he would necessarily have that here. You actually should probably have that more than he should, because he shouldn't be calling with a guy calling in between. I'm saying that's a losing play. I'm not saying that he might not show up with it, but 8-9 opening 8-9 suit from +2 and then defending to a 3-bet with a guy in between that's likely to call is a losing play. You should probably have more 9-8 here than he does. You have a 10-9. So I'm not overly concerned about 8-9, especially with this type of sizing, the way that it went down. But you're concerned that he's just going to roll over like King 10, Ace 10, and you're going to. So you're just saying you're going to. What would you do with like jacks, queens, kings, or aces here if played this way?
That's a good question. I think I would consider raising small for value. Although the board run out, in that case, I wouldn't really block the nuts like I do here. And so I might be a little bit more concerned about the board run out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you bet small enough, I think it might be reasonable to raise to a small size, like maybe like if you bet 300, maybe raising to like something small, 650 or 700 for value.
Someone's also saying that is it possible that he could have like jacks here? Yeah, that's possible. My only concern here, because it sounds to me like you're thinking about raising here as a bluff. My only concern here is that the line is taken so infrequently. Like if you raise and like say you jam, I mean you're basically saying you have 8-9, right?
Right.
And that's fine. My only concern here is that it's so I don't know. I'm not sure if you're going to get the result that you want if a guy has a 10. Now, I'm not saying I would get here like with this guy's line, right, with a 10. I think it's borderline a little bit ridiculous. It's also, but if someone does have a 10, that means you don't have 10s, 3 10s, even though we talked about the nuts change with 8-9. I usually don't go out on a limb and take this hand that has some showdown value against draws and bluff with it. I kind of, although it looks like the chat is disagreeing with me, I kind of would call here more often than do what it sounds like you're thinking about doing here.
Yeah. So the main reason, this is my first call in, and the main reason I called in was because sometimes I wonder whether I'm a victim of like fancy play syndrome. or whether it's actually reasonable to do crazy things like this. And so, yeah, in this case, I just felt like I was going to be good so rarely with my kicker. And so I decided to raise. I actually raised to 1,000, turning top pair into a bluff, which I don't know if I've ever done before.
So you don't just jam all in. You make it look, and you're just, again, like if you had played aces or kings this way and you wanted to raise the river, what kind of sizing would you use?
So I think exploitatively, I probably would go a little bit smaller. And I don't know if I'm completely balanced in that way, but I did
Right.
want to make it a little bit more value appearing than just jamming all in. And also I figured if he does have queen 10 or jack 10, king 10, and he's ever going to fold those hands, then I think a raise to 1,000 should accomplish the same amount as a jam, I would think.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think the whole reason why you raise here is because of sometimes the property of your hands and the fact that he doesn't have 8-9. I mean, now when he goes 300 and you make it 1,000, the pot's going to be what, 22, 25, and it's going to be 700 for him to call. So he's going to getting 3-1, and you think he's going to fold out a 10 here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the sizing is, even though I probably wouldn't choose to make it huge and rep like this as a bluff with top pair that often. I do think if you want to do that, I think this might be too small sizing though to get what you want. I mean, obviously there are times, right, in live poker where we can raise a smaller amount and get the exact same thing that we want. It makes no sense, right, to raise larger, but I don't know if that's one of these times though.
Right. No, that's fair. I guess in terms of like the properties of my hand, I thought it was a decent candidate just because I don't have any hearts. I have a 9 and I block the nuts, and then I also block like top set, which I don't know if he would ever lead top set into 2 other players, but yeah, I went for it.
Okay, and what happened?
He called pretty quickly. He kind of gave that like, well, it is what it is look. Took like 5 seconds and then called.
Did he have a set of like sevens or something?
No, he had ace 10.
Oh.
And he had
quickly, huh?
ace 10 offsuit with the ace of hearts as well, which I didn't think was great for him to have there.
It would have been interesting if you had raised all in, though, how that would have changed, or raised to a larger amount. I mean, you had a bunch of money left, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could, you would have made it, what, 1,800 or something all in?
I think I had another maybe 500 or 550 left.
Oh, so it would have been to like 1,600?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the size, man, especially like the whole all in, you know what I mean?
Right.
When, whenever a lot of people aren't putting their whole money in here. But I probably would have called more often than done that. Which
just you think it was a small enough bet size where I'm good enough? Like often
yeah, I think so. I mean, it sucks that you've got 10-9. I mean, where's the cutoff, right? What do you call with king 10, queen 10, jack 10?
Wait, sorry, what'd you say?
What if you had queen 10? What if you had king 10? What if you had jack 10?
I think that'd make a difference because then I wouldn't block the nuts with the 9, and I would also be beating some of those weaker hands. Like if I had queen 10, I'd at least be beating 10 jack and chopping with queen 10.
Right, but you say you block the nuts because you have a 9, but if he's not supposed to be in there with 9-8 suited, is that relevant?
That's why it might be fancy play syndrome.
Okay. I just throwing it all out there. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Bart.
All right, thanks, guys. So, like I said, we've got 5 calls here today. Just gonna take a little bit of a breath here. Again, if you do want to get in on the show, you can click on the link in the description, and that will get you instructions on how to properly submit, and it makes it a lot easier on us when you submit properly, so that we can read through the hand pretty quickly and pick the best ones. Let's go to our next caller here, Jonathan W. You are next, sir. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, Bart.
How's it
Thanks
going?
for having me.
Yep.
Good.
Got a hand for us here?
Yes, I'm going to continue with the New Orleans theme. You're going to get 2 of these.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you called from Harrah's New Orleans too, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yep. This one is the 2-5 game.
So is that uncapped?
Match the stack, yeah,
Match
which
the
is
stack.
effectively uncapped at some point.
Okay.
And this is emblematic of that because on this one we are about 8,000 effective with the villain. In the tables, maybe an average of 2,000 with like 3 or 4,000 stacks. So it's a deep game.
Yeah, 8. That's why I said like I remember being this game playing big when I've played it a few times.
Yeah. So we have a button straddle
Okay.
on this hand, $10. That's common, I think, at this game. It wasn't 100%, but it's real close.
Everything goes in order. No like Houston last
Yeah,
action.
yeah, no crazy stuff. Small blind, big blind goes around to the button's last act. So small blind folds, big blind limps. The call there about 4,000 effective.
Okay.
Under the gun limps as well, and I'm under gun +1, and I open $50 with Jack 9 of hearts.
You're +1, and you go. So hero +1 to 50. Jack of hearts, 9 of hearts. A little bit light. 9-handed table, right?
Yeah, I mean it is, but I guess in these deeper games, I tend to play a bigger range, especially when I have some limpers in front of me in position and try to get heads up against them for some bigger pots.
Okay, so you go to 50.
And we get one call from late position. The button calls, and then the big blind and the under the gun limper call. So we're going 5 ways to the flop.
Calls, limpers call, and it's like 250, right?
Yeah, right around that. Yep.
Okay.
We got a flop of Queen of Hearts, 9 of Spades, 9 of Clubs.
Oh, Queen of Hearts, 9 of Spades, 9 of Clubs. So you flop trips.
Favorable, yes.
Okay.
So both the limpers check to me, and then I go for a real small down bet here, just because of sort of how dry the board is and all of that. I just bet 60.
Wow, 60. I mean, Queen X is going to be fairly represented here.
Yeah,
I know,
maybe it's an error.
I mean, I know it's there isn't a 2 flush out there, but I would tend to go larger. Anytime, different than like 9-9 deuce, right? I think with 9-9 deuce, I think we could get on board with your bet size here. But anytime you got some Broadway straight draws with like King Jack, Jack 10, and then when these guys love to VPIP the Queen X, I would have probably taken a larger sizing here.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I guess what I didn't want to do was bet bigger and then get raised. And even though my hand's strong, like I don't know if I want to take it to the house for $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 if that's what comes to it. So it was probably too small, but that's what I bet. It folds around to the big blind, the first limper, and he calls.
Okay.
And then the under the gun limper raises to 225.
So big blind button folds. So now you get position over everybody. Big blind calls, and now the under the gun raiser goes to 225 on Queen 9-9 Rainbow. This is not usually a common spot where you're going to see somebody, raise Jack 10 suited. It's possible you have a Jack in your hand, and obviously I'm not folding now when you have trips. It's just saying something,
Yeah, I will say though, the big blind, was pretty deep and was more of like a passive loose player that maybe was a bit of a target in the game, and the other the gun limper is sort of a very very good younger pro, and like so it's possible he could be trying to get me out of the pot, with my perceived weak bet size and try to ISO it.
I mean, the other thing, too, about the quality of your 9 and your kicker, right? I mean, again, he could be playing it, but not supposed to be playing things like 8-9 and 10-9, which are beating right now. And the 9 that would be probably played this way the most as like a limp call, if it's played this way, might be like Ace-9, which, of course, you're losing to. So a little bit different than somebody flatting in the field in position where they might have a more of a representation than of some of these lower 9s. But that's what I've been thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're going to call, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because he's more aggressive side. The fact that he limped was a little weird. So I think Ace-9, even offsuits, and Queen-9 is probably in there. So yeah, I don't know that I'm doing great against a check raise. So I just call, and then the big blind folds behind.
All right. So now we are at just about 700, right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So the turn comes out a 3 of hearts. So it gives me the backdoor heart draw.
So you turn a backdoor heart draw, okay?
And the villain continues for 325.
So this UTG limper who check raised you bets 325, and I don't think there's really anything for you to do here but call.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
So now we're at 1350 on Queen 9-9. Rainbow turns a 3 of hearts. Hero, who is the pre-flop raiser here with the Jack 9 of hearts, now turns a flush draw with his trips, and now we're at 1350 here as we get
Mhm.
to the end. Okay.
All right. So the river is a king of hearts. So the flush comes in.
Okay. So queen 993 king, and you make the jack high flush, which is the second nut flush behind the ace
Yeah.
high flush, and obviously the board is paired, and then also ace nine of hearts is actually available here as
Well,
well.
because I have the 9 of hearts.
Oh, excuse me, it's not. I'm
So,
sorry,
yeah.
not available. Sorry, ace nine of
Yeah.
hearts is not available here. Right. There is no 9x of hearts that is available here.
That's correct. And there's really no ace X of hearts
Right.
combination.
That would
That's-
make sense here for him to
Yeah.
check raise. Right.
Right. So he starts with a check.
So UTG checks, and I do remember this one here. So you'd think, well, so you beat ace nine here, right? Like if you
Yep.
had one of the other ace nines, and the way that this one went down, you wouldn't think he's ever going to have queens full, or like, queen nine. The way that it's played, so it's really kind of. I mean, he really shouldn't have any boats here. The way that this
I
one's
definitely
played.
think he never has queens and he never has
Right.
kings.
So
But
what
I
boat-
do think he could have queen 9. I do think that's possible.
So just looking back at the suits here,
It's
When-
one combo.
yeah,
suited.
there's because you've got jack nine of hearts and the nine of spades and the nine of
Right.
clubs, so he could have queen nine of diamonds. But sometimes, like
Right.
if the queen of diamonds was out there, you couldn't have any queen nine suited. So when you get into these extreme spots, you can look at that. But I do think a bet is in order here to get value here from a nine. You also would he ever have like a jack 10 type of holding? I just don't see what boats can he have here. I don't know how you don't have the best hand here.
I think it's possible I don't have the best hand, but I think I just have the best hand a ton, right? So I went with a kind of beefy bet. I went with 850.
Well, it is interesting just because, like I said, like you have a nine, so it's less likely that he has a nine. And then the way that this one gets played out, let's say, for example, he has ace nine here. Is he just going to call because he has a nine? I mean, your hand looks pretty strong. I don't know if ace nine here is a winning call. When ace nine very well might be, you could make a case that it could be a check on the river, and it might be one of these extreme cases where it gets checked through a lot and ace nine wins. But then if the hero makes a beefy bet, is ace nine good here enough the way that this went down? Because it's not, are you value betting aces here as played when the backdoor heart comes in?
I'm not personally, no. I don't know what his perception of me is, but I'm not betting aces for value. I'm checking.
The reason why I'm walking that through one is because it kind of makes me want to not take this. It's not like you went gigantic, right? But I might go more like 400 or 500 here, just because it's very, very hard. Now, if you think the guy's going to always call down with any nine, it's just because you have a nine here. It's and again, like if you were to get check raised here, I just can't. It just wouldn't make any sense. So the
Right.
400 or 500 might be the it's 400 or 500 call, meaning like if you get check
I think
raised,
that makes sense.
you call.
Yeah, I don't
just
think I'm getting
know.
called by a bad 9. I think that's the problem. Like I think he's good enough to fold like an 8-9 or something. if
So
he
you think
has
that
it.
you should have sized smaller here at the end?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think at the time I was thinking, 2/3 pot. That's not too big.
Uh-huh.
But I think based on the texture of the board, it's probably too big.
Okay, so you go 850.
Yep. And then after a little bit of thinking, he makes it 3,500.
So raises to 3,500.
Yep.
I don't know how you lose here, and this is why I'm gonna. I see. This is the whole thing with hand reading. It's conditional logic for some of you guys in the live chat, and we'll put this up as a best of, I'm sure. Right? I'm just trying to get it so that people can see on the screen, so that everything sort of fits in here on the screen, because this one kind of went over a little bit, and people would be like, "Well, why can't he have like queens full or kings full?" Go back to pre-flop here. And even if it's decent, right? Like the dude over limped a big blind complete. Hero went to 50. The button called. The big blind completer called. He's not going to just call, right? With queen, queen. He's not going to have queen, queen. He's not going to have king, king. He's not going to have 3-3, the way that this went down. So the only I guess you could lose to king 9.
Yeah,
I keep
that's what I
saying,
was thinking,
I
maybe.
keep thinking it's king 9 is the one hand here. King 9 or queen 9, which he shouldn't be playing. So king 9 of diamonds here. And I don't know. We've heard so much anecdotal evidence here. It's almost worse that you have a 9 here. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, like, I'd almost rather have Jack 10 of hearts here, because I've heard so many people say that people have been turning trips into bluffs here. Like if he had 9x, I want to almost give him an opportunity to have 9x if that's where the primary bluff is coming from, where he's correctly structuring a situation where he might be check raising, where a 9 might get checked here, like a hand like 8-9, because it's going to go check so much. But then when you take this beefy bet, he feels like raising is a better play than calling, right? But you want to have more of an opportunity that he has a 9. So I actually think it's better if you didn't have a 9 here in your hand, which is interesting. But still, I think this is one where if the guy has king 9, so I mean, I know it's a lot of money, right? But if he's got king 9 or he limped in with queen 9 and played it this way, I might tap the table, but I'd have a really, really hard time folding this one.
Let me ask you this, because what came in my mind was I think this is the absolute worst hand that I'm betting for value on the river. Because I just don't think I'm going for value with a naked 9 or with an overpair. Does that matter at all? Does the fact that, like, if I call here, I'm calling every time I bet on this river when I have all the best hands and he has none of the best hands, is that a thing to consider? Or is it just when I have all the best hands and he has none of the best hands, then it's more likely to be a bluff?
Well, I don't know how far we want to go down this road, because, like, what are you betting here on the river? Because you're saying you're not betting aces with, like, the ace
Only
of hearts.
flushes and boats. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes the board dictates a situation where, like, you have all the best hands. Like, you're going to have queens full and kings full here. So I don't know if it necessarily matters that you're always... I mean, you're never going to bet... You don't have to have a bet fold range on the river here. What if you had queens full or kings full?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I would call those, obviously. Yes.
So... But again, like for me here, the way that this one went down, I would not fold. Even though like I said, even though the frequency of check raise river bluffing is pretty small, some people are saying king queen, that this guy could have king queen. And again, what's interesting there is that coming out of like a PLO play, you'd be like, well, king queen blocks the hero from having queens or kings. It does, but it's also representing that the villain could have some of those hands, when I just don't find that possible in the pre-flop setup.
Yeah, I would be very surprised. I mean, I didn't think he would be limping king queen initially, and then secondly, I think check raising king queen on the flop and then continuing in the turn is pretty thin. Which is not to say it's impossible, but I guess I didn't even think about that combo particularly. I was thinking more like, could he have ace 9 with the ace of hearts or something? Like
ace 9 off with the ace of hearts. I mean, but you're beating that hand too, right?
Right, yeah. Well, that would be the only bluff I could think of that at the time that I was thinking about. I guess I wasn't thinking as much about turning 8-9 into a bluff, which I probably should have been thinking about as well.
Well, it's just a weird one for, I don't know, because you have all the queens and pocket kings here. Okay, this is flipping this one back from a global perspective. Because you have queens full and kings full, and that's a 6 combos of those hands, right? And he doesn't have those hands, right? And it's very hard for him to have a boat here if he's playing like he's supposed to be. I don't know if this is supposed to ever be check raised here by him, because you have such a nut advantage, right?
Right. That was kind of why I didn't even worry about it when I was betting initially, which is why I sized up so big. If I had thought about it more, maybe I would have sized down. But when I sized up, it was because I thought I have like the complete nut advantages on this. Like I could probably go 2x spot and it'd be fine.
People saying ace 10 of hearts, that's another one that's just like way the fuck out there, right? He'd limp in with ace 10 of hearts and then check raise the flop. What did you do? Did you find the call button?
I ended up folding.
No. No.
I know. And it ended up showing king queen off. So the chat pros are right.
Oh my God. Hero fold. Why did you fold?
Ultimately, what kept coming up in my mind was this is the worst hand that I bet for value. And I guess I always just try to stay somewhat balanced. And so my thought at the time was, well, if this is the worst hand I bet for value, it should be my first fold. And so I didn't go much beyond that. and I think the analysis you added there was pretty.
But like I
was
said,
pretty
can't you have hands that are the worst? You're betting for value, but you're always calling based
You
upon
could. I guess
the
I don't
texture of the
normally.
board.
Yeah, right. I think this is a unique situation where that's probably true. I guess normally I try to have some bet folds that aren't just pure air. But
Yeah.
yes, I think that's right.
Interesting one. So he showed it.
He showed it. Yeah, I mean, when you pull off a bluff like that, you got to get some credit for it, right?
That's a ballsy fucking bluff because, again, like I said, we go back to and I think it has to do with the backdoor heart. Like, God, I don't know if that's ever really a good bluff, because if you are not betting aces here because he might slow down because of the Jack 10 and the backdoor hearts coming in, but he could easily have a 9, then you seem to have a very, very strong. It's almost like King Queen is more of a call because it's blocking your thick value ish. Yeah, you could go down the weeds with the texture here, but I don't know how many bet folds you're gonna have if you're not betting for bet folds for value, right? If you're not gonna have aces here.
That's right. Yep, that's a good point. Yeah.
And also too, like if you had like 8-9 here or 9-10, like say for example the river was an offsuit king, okay? Say it was the king of spades and he checked to you. What would you bet with Jack 9 there? Would you bet? I mean, you're not beating 10-9.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a chop against 10-9 or
Right.
8-9. So
Right. Yeah, probably not, I guess.
interesting little
Or
run
betting really small, maybe, I guess. But yeah.
Because it is because of that backdoor heart and the fact that Jack 10 comes in. Like I said, if an offsuit king were to come in, you might see some frequency of some other 9 checking here. Scared of
Right.
kings full, scared of queens full, scared of Jack 10, right? I mean, those hands
Right.
that you continue with. But appreciate, though. It was an interesting one. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Bart.
All right, let's go to our last caller here. Zooming along, Matt P, who was a last-minute add-on. Thanks for hanging on the line, Matt.
Hey, Bart. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yep. So what do we got here?
Okay, so this is a hand played out of Poker Hub in Dayton, Ohio.
In Dayton, Ohio?
Yes, sir.
So is this a quasi-private-ish type game, or is this an actual club?
It's an actual club.
Oh, really?
They actually just opened up about 2 months ago, so it's relatively new.
So if you go back on YouTube, I played and I used to, and this is funny because I always say to Ryan Feldman, I would love to do remote commentary. And I've done it before, and I've done it a long time before. And one of the first places I did in this thing called Poker on Air, where I met my buddy Joey Sal from Ohio, and one of our content contributors, Peter O'Neill, stay in school. He's from Ohio, but Poker on Air, I want to say was from. It wasn't. What's some place that's like within an hour of Cleveland, but is like over 100,000 people?
Toledo, maybe.
It wasn't Toledo, I don't think.
Maybe Columbus.
No, it wasn't Columbus. It was someplace in Ohio. I don't remember if it was. But yeah, Poker on Air. You can just like Google on YouTube. We did live streams 2014, 2015. Nice little show.
Okay.
So what size of the game is this one?
So this is a 2-5 game. And the $10 Puttin straddle is on. And
By the way, I want to say Akron, Ohio. Does that make sense?
Akron, yeah.
Yeah, Akron, Ohio.
Yep.
Okay.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So 2-5. Okay.
So I'm in the big blind, and I have Jack of Diamonds, Jack of Clubs.
And how deep are you?
900 effective.
Just a straight up 2-5 game.
Yep.
Okay.
So since the Puttin straddle is on, the small blind he opens to 35.
And this goes in order.
Yes.
Okay.
And just a quick note on this on the small blind. He's my good friend, and we have lots of history, so that kind of plays into it some about how this hand is played.
Okay, so small blind. This is the ultimate UTG setup, right? 9-handed in the ultimate should be even tighter.
Yep.
Okay.
So I 3-bet to 110
on the button.
No, in the big blind.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said that. Yeah. So
Yep.
you 3-bet to 110 with Jack. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
And then it folds back to him, and he 4-bets to 280.
So the ultra under the gun, I'll call it the ultra under the gun, opens here to 35 because of the button straddle and the small blind because it's going in order. If anyone's, usually button straddles will do this. Sometimes they'll start from under the gun, the traditional under the gun, but a lot of times they'll start through the blinds. Hero with jacks, 3 bets to 110, perfectly reasonable, right? You got the rest of the field behind you. And now it gets back over to your buddy who 4 bets to 280 off of a 900 stack, right?
Yeah.
So he has made it basically right around that thresholdy amount. So it's actually good sizing by him where it's just right around 30% of effective stacks. And when I say pre-flop threshold amount, CLP content reference, I'm talking about the theory goes here that if you are going to make the extra bet. Now, this works for any street, but usually we talk about this pre-flop. Like if you're going to put the extra bet in like your buddy does as a 4 bet, you will either want to size it to an amount where there is fold equity. If, in this case, you come back over the top for a 5 bet, or if there isn't, he should just move all in. So if you were playing off of like 700 effective, he shouldn't go to 280. He should just move all in. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, now where I say you can break that threshold is with really good hands like aces and kings, because a lot of people aren't paying attention and you're just trying to get more money in and they hit top pair. But he's actually sized it to an amount where if you come back over the top, like it appears like you have fold equity here, right? Like if you jam for 900, he might have some 4 bet folds.
Yeah. So yeah, this sizing here puts me in a tough spot, because if I call, then we'll just have about 1 SPR. So
yeah,
it was tough. So I went back and forth between calling and folding.
Can you so if you call, the pot will be 560 and you'll have 620 left ish, something like that?
That sounds about right.
I don't think it's always just a jam, or some people are saying fold. And I kind of just detect from what you were saying, just because you're telling me that it's your buddy. What do you guys like, battle or something? Sometimes
we do battle some, yeah.
So you're saying that there's a possibility that this is a 4 bet bluff. There are some 4 bet bluffs in here.
Yeah, I think since it's a tight configuration, though, there will be less 4 bet bluffs than usual. So I think he's more value heavy here. And with jacks, I don't beat a whole lot of his value. So I did not think to 5 bet jam. It was for me, it was between call and fold.
So I'll ask you. It's a pretty easy question, caller. What are the primary hands that people? What card does somebody usually have in their hand as a like one of these pre-flop bluffs? Usually,
an ace. Usually,
right. So like a hand like ace 4 suited, ace 5 suited, something like that. Although I do think that people don't realize that the value of ace 5 suited, like as one of these blocker bluffs, goes way down without stack depth. I mean, that has the reason why you'll choose ace 5 suited with stack depth. That's just because you get some back doors, right? But then if you have no stack depth, there's no play, right? Post.
Yeah.
So it goes down.
Exactly.
So I'm just kind of thinking, like, if you call, like you can call here and then just do you go with it with a you kind of just wait on a non-ace type of board here?
Yeah, I think if the board came out with no ace or king, I would probably go with it.
Yeah, king is a little more dicey because of the fact that, because you're saying he always has ace king, so a lot of king X is represented here. Yeah,
I think he'll always have ace.
Right.
Ace king here. So
yeah. So did you call?
I did end up calling. Yeah.
I don't think that's a terrible play or anything like that. And I kind of tend to agree with you here that it's very close. But I don't think this is just a 5 bet fold spot. If it was more than that, sure. But so we go to the flop and it's like what, 560 and 570, right, with the straddle?
Yes.
Okay.
So the flop comes ace of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, ace of spades.
Ace of diamonds, 8 of diamonds, ace of spades.
Yep.
So 2 aces out there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he down bets really small to 100. So this also was an interesting bet because it was like 1/5 the size of the pot.
It's probably the right size bet, to be honest with you. It's handcuffing.
Yeah.
off of this stack size, because it's like, that's the other thing too. A lot of people don't realize that you can go post flop with one SPR and still play a 2-street game if you use small enough sizing, whether it's bet check bet or bet all in. And usually you'll see that like in situations where the board might come out somewhat dynamic, like 9-deuce-3. Maybe you're a little bit deeper, and a guy c bets with like ace queen or king queen, and then it's like you're like and in this spot you might have just ripped it right on a 9-high board, but if you're a little bit deeper, then he gets to play like a 2-street game. But yeah, this one's he's betting 100 into 570. You've got backdoor diamonds with a little bit of extra equity here too, so it's kind of hard. I don't think you can fold, but it's
Yeah, so let
me ask you this question. What if he just bets like I'll ask you 2 questions. What if he bet all in for pot, right? Or just over pot? And then what if he took some other sizing? What would you have done?
I think, if he jams, I don't know. I honestly did not think about that. If he jams, I would probably just fold, but it would be an interesting sizing to take on a board like that. Because I would have the jack of diamonds, so I'd block some of his like Broadway diamond bluffs, like
if he's structuring correctly. If he's structuring correctly.
I think if he would take probably any other size larger than 150, I probably would have just mucked it.
Even though there's less of a chance that he has an ace with 2 out there.
Yeah, it would be hard for me to find the bluffs, I think.
Well, all I'll say about that is that you should be way more enthusiastic about folding to whatever sizing he was going to use with 1 ace out there as opposed to 2.
Yeah.
I assume you defend here, though.
Yes, I do call.
All right, so now we're at 770, and you guys have, 520 left? Right?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
So the turn is the king of spades.
So now you're even losing to king queen.
Yeah, and he now checks.
Okay. Which he might just do it with all of his hands, right?
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, with the SPR that we have now. So
or I guess you could make the same bet again. What if you bet like 100 again? Now you're just gonna fold.
I don't know.
That would be a hell of a double barrel with like a 6-7 suited or something, right?
I would have to fold. Unless there would be any merit to calling. I don't even know.
Well, if he's never betting King X on the turn and he bets 100, then I don't know how many things change, except the fact that some of the Broadway draws pick up equity against you, which you block, by the way. So he checks. I'm assuming you're going to check this back, right?
Yes, I do check this back.
Okay, so here checks it back, and we're at 770. Okay.
Yep. And then the river comes a very interesting card. It comes the King of Clubs.
Now, I just want to say something. So you say King of Clubs. Somebody, Harinmaru, says you got to bluff him off a king to win. So what this guy's talking about is that if your buddy does have like a hand like king queen and he checks to you and you bet, I don't know if he's going to continue, right? But it's not like you have nothing here either, right?
Yeah.
And then he might, but he still has like all the ace X's if he was going to check a bunch on the turn. So,
yeah, I think going back to pre-flop, he won't have a whole lot of 4-bet bluffs, which is partly why I wanted to fold in the first place. So, it's interesting what his range looks like here on the turn that he checks.
So I gotta defend you, caller. Office of Peace Information says this hand is a train wreck. Really? What has the caller done wrong here so far? Just talking out loud. 770. We go to the river. We go to the river, and it's the King of Clubs. So the board, maybe he was talking about the run out. So it's ace 8, ace, turns a king, river's a king. So you get counterfeit now, right?
Yes.
But you do beat the board, right? You've got jack high.
I do beat the board.
You have the second nut non-pair here. And you beat 10s, right? If that's ever 4-bet. Okay.
So he checks again.
So now small blind checks again. This is very, very interesting because, and I do remember this one. So there's a lot of things going on here, right? you don't normally think that somebody would check down an ace here all the way, although I think it's possible. But if he had a king here, wouldn't this be the most viable line?
I would think so.
I don't think he's betting a king here at the end, right?
I think he could be betting a king at the end once I check back.
What is
the
he trying to
turn.
get called by if he's betting a king?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if I had queens, maybe, because that would be the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I would play some aces like that, like ace, queen, ace, jack. Well, not ace, jack. I mean, ace, queen suited potentially. I would play the same way, or ace, king too.
By the way, the hero is in position in the big blind against the small blind. People keep saying check raise, check raise. He's in position. Again, flip the hand back. Ultra under the gun open because of the button straddle. Small blind opens. Hero 3-bets his buddy off a 900 effective, which is less than 100 big blinds, right? To 110. Small blind 4-bets to 280. Hero calls with jack, jack. Board comes out ace, 8, ace. Small blind bets 100. Hero calls, turns a king, check, check. 770. Rivers a king. Small blind checks again. And I guess my only thought here is that. So, if you bet, I feel like you'd have to get enough king X to fold here to make turning your hand into a bluff a worthy play. I mean, I know he could have queen, queen, and that would be almost an impossible call for him to make. Although I'll go back to this too here, which is really interesting, caller, because I don't know if you caught the last call, right? What did I say that people miss? That's one of the most important parts of hand rating when you get into these situations. That goes back to the early part of the hand.
Pre-flop.
Well, yes, it is pre-flop, but
The
flop
configuration of it.
flop c-bet sizing.
Ah, okay.
Flop c-bet sizing. So if I was somehow in your opponent's spot and I ended up here with queen, queen, and I checked and you ripped it or you bet, I might start thinking about one of the things that I would grasp at is I bet 100 into 570 here. So if my buddy here has 10-10 or jack-jack, he's going to be forced, or 9-9 or something like that. He's going to, or some sort of Broadway, like queen jack suited, something like that. Even though I had 2 queens, he's going to be forced to defend down. So he might end up with a larger volume of hands. I keep stressing this, right? On the river, which I might convince myself if I had queen, queen, if I was your buddy and I got into this spot where I might convince myself to call down if I didn't think you were moving all in with a king here at the end. Now, if you, before we talk about what you did here, let's say you had king, queen suited here, like king, queen of diamonds, okay? Or, because you can't have king, queen of spades because the back door comes in. But somehow you run into a king here and you call because of his small flop sizing, right? Are you going to bet the river to try to get him off of a chop if you had king, queen suited here somehow? If you ran into king, queen of diamonds here, what would you do at the end?
I would probably bet on the smaller side to try and get called by queens. Well, but I don't know if that'd be the right thinking or not, because I don't know how often queens would call me.
Well, it just kind of all goes back to how often does he have an ace played like this? Does he check an ace at the end? Right.
Yeah, I don't think he would check an ace and for 2 streets, but I could be wrong. There might be a sliver of aces still in his range.
Here's my gut reaction. I think I would do a lot of checking back if I'm in your spot here, unless I thought that this guy overfolded and he would fold the king.
I don't think he has, just based on how tight pre-flop was, I don't think he's going to make any, I think when he 4-bets me, he'll be very polarized.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he'll have any king, queen suited or king, queen. He might have some king, queen off, but I don't really see
so
him
if he's
that.
If he's polarized, and we talked about 4-bet bluff polarized, so do you win here sometimes then against 6-7 suited or something?
It's possible, but I think in my head I was like, okay, if if I check this back and he wins with queens, I would be I would be pretty upset. So
Well, I mean, I'll just pull one out. I mean, like I said, we don't know the act, but just I'll just keep it logical. And I tend to agree with this guy that for whatever reason, usually villains don't end up here with much ace X, as Tom Hornby says. Tom Hornby says he doesn't have an ace here all that often. And if you're saying that he's not four betting like king queen, then he probably doesn't have a king. So if you could just get him to fold out everything, including queen queen, I guess. If that's the one thing that you're scared of and you think queen queen is going to fold out, then I guess you could make that case just to get him off a queen queen. Because it would suck. It would suck if you check it back and you win sometimes against some bullshit, but you could have got him to fold queen queen.
Yeah. So that was my thought at the time. So I'm not sure if that was the correct thinking or not, but what I ended up doing was we had about 500 behind, and I bet 300. So I didn't move all in. I just bet about I left him with about 200 back.
Oh, is that your cat in the background?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. Well, that's an interesting one here too, because you're saying you think you're betting an amount that will get him off a queen. It doesn't matter if you shove or not. Like he'll fold queen queen for 300. You're just trying to get him to fold queen queen, and he'll fold for 300 just like he'll fold for a shove.
Yeah,
That's the logic.
So that was my thinking.
And then it might be lend itself to having more credence that if you bet 300 and he had queen queen, he might think that you might have some king X here. Whereas if you shoved, you're only repping ace X.
Yeah, that was my hope that I would, with that bet sizing, I would have some kings in my range too. So
you go 300. What happens here?
He instantly shows queen queen and he mucks.
Did you show him the jack jack?
I did have to show him. So yeah, and he was like, "Well, he thought he played the hand bad." And
I mean, I already told you about 5 minutes ago that I very well might find a call here with queen queen if I'm your opponent, grasping on the flop c bet sizing. That one takeaway, the flop c bet sizing.
Yeah,
grasping, thinking that you might have hands that you have to bluff with here, that you had to defend with on the flop, which you do. You have the best one, but you do, right? So, interesting one.
Yep.
And then I could play a little game of like, I could go into levels myself. Well, now he's betting 300. That will suck if I call with queen queen and he shows me a king. But I'm blocking the king queens, right?
Yeah,
if those are the only ones you're calling with, right? King queen suited, I'm blocking those, and you're not continuing with king jack at this SPR because it's like the worst hand you ever 3-bet with. So maybe you fold out. So there's that, right?
Yeah. So. I think just the fact that he had queens, it will cut down lots of my king queen suited combos. So it would be an excuse to call, and he blocks ace queen too. So I don't know. It was an interesting spot from both perspectives. So it was nice to have your input on it.
Yeah, no problem, man. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yep. All right.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Nice little show. Pretty decent calls here today, as always. Thanks for trying, like I said, keep it as real as possible in the live chat. Somebody had mentioned to me, or in one of our somebody comments said, "Oh, it would be nice to maybe like throw up the live chat comments sometimes, maybe sometime in the future." It's just it's really hard. You got to go back in and like sync it up, and maybe we could possibly just pick some to show, like screenshot them and pick some to show as I reference them. But I mean, I try to call them out, as best as I possibly can. But again, if you do want to get in on the show and you want to be on the show, you can click on the link in the description. It's submissions@crushlivepoker.com or clpsubs@crushlivepoker.com is the email. If you are a CLP sub, you will always get priority. We're always looking for new callers too. And yeah, if you're in the New Hampshire area, I'll be at Chasers, and I'm gonna get there, fuckers. I'm gonna get there. I'm not gonna get locked out of the first game, so I'll be there at 10:15. I gotta be there at 10:15. Wait outside for 15 minutes. and then they don't bring the dealers out until 11. But I do love that game, half 5-10 no limit, half PLO, half no limit with double board bomb pots. And if you're not a CLP sub and you're not familiar, now we're doing multiple double board PLO videos per month. I'm doing 2. And the last one I did, I actually reviewed a CLP sub that does a vlog, Joey effing Pigtails. Sometimes we'll see him in here. That was a fun one too. So that was a cool video. So thanks for keeping it real in the live chat, guys. As always, thank you, Michael G, for keeping it moderator, for being the moderator extraordinaire and keeping everything cool. And we'll